My name is Gwyneth Young, and I've been with Path from Poverty since 2002 when I went on my very first Kenyan working trip. And I've just went on my fifth trip back in February and March of this year, because working with the women and seeing how hard that they work is just really amazing. And tonight I am here with Wieni, and over to her.
Hello. As Gwyneth has said, my name is Winey, and I am one of the Path from Poverty board members.
We are now going to watch a video called A Day in the Life, Women Walking for Water.
Morning comes, like many others before. It marks the start of a challenge. For all of us, water is essential to life. But for many women here, it's a daily struggle to find enough of it to provide for their families. With laundry to clean, children to take care of, and food to find, water is always a concern. Meet Josephine Bide Musembi. She wakes up early to read the Bible and pray with her children. And now, after morning preparations are finally completed, she carries her youngest child in a 20-liter water can and is ready to start her search, not knowing how many hours today's long journey will take. At a nearby riverbed, she starts her search. Digging into the ground, she hopes to find any water trapped beneath the surface. But with climate shifts and inadequate rainfall, the land has become quite dry, and the precious water she seeks remains elusive. More women arrive and join in the search, digging deeper and deeper, looking for any sign that the river still has water. They try different locations, traveling to other parts of the river to search again. But as the days wears on, their efforts continue to be unrewarded, and soon it becomes clear the river has dried up. Their hopes of finding a new water supply has failed. Not all hope is lost. There is the existing water hole. Today, like most days, the watering hole is very busy. Many other women have already arrived, hoping to collect their daily water. The pathway to the water is narrow, and going down it must be done with care. Everyone must wait their turn. Patiently waiting. Patience wears thin among those who have been waiting, and disagreements over who gets to collect water next ensue. For now, discourse and reason prevail, but with tensions high and everyone eager to return home from the morning's travels, arguments can become physical. Arguments not only over who can go next, but also over how they can collect the water. Calm eventually returns to the water hole, taking a moment to quench the thirst from the long wait. Gathering of water is able to resume. Patience eventually pays off, and it is now Josephine's turn. Happy to finally have her chance to collect water, she quickly fills her 20-liter can. With this life-giving search for water nearing completion, all that remains for these women is to make the long journey back home with their heavy loads. Young girls and daughters soon start making these trips in order to aid in their mother's burden. Collecting water can take 4 hours and has many dangers. Traveling together helps these women keep safe. Also, knowing that they are not alone helps keep them going. With the long walk back nearing its end and their search for water complete, these women say their farewells and head back to their homesteads. And now that this daily challenge is finally complete, the rest of the day's work can now begin. Josephine is also returning from her journey to find water, and so continues the rest of the day's chores, tending to the animals, gathering firewood for cooking. Water is shared in many ways. Water for the goats, water for baths, water for cooking, water for washing clothes, water for chickens. All water is precious, and none of it can be wasted. And now there's finally a moment to eat and rest.
Ilikuwa masira nenda Josephine Musembi namuka saa 10 yasamba hivyo ndisoma na sana kwa na tivoya na mina kuvoya ndimala banza ndiyo so nditutanga ndisiza ndiye abayingwa kewo yasa murongi ndiyo sene na ndiyo sene kwa masa ele kuthi na masa ele kusoka masana na biko sene ne bya ususu onotekewo ndipukwa ngatundiye abayingwa kewo ndike dimane kenge ndide ibetinge seba ndikolyo mwana yinengo mwana nduti yanondo ne yana mwana tana ete ba musinuka ngakele ngeke ya munge kadhiuka tikavuwa ngwa na kila kingi ndiye kitambo nesiana na noje ninenga mbu na jokiwo tikese ne kikitha geketuni nundu wakinywa kwithi ana thina wa maubu ona kana kwithi ukethia kena thina webu kwa bahati ngeso kwatetangi ni banda mboka nganyitha cia ukethia nonete dio nayo na ciana ciakwa yinywa bobo.
Once women have water tanks, they can also work towards solar panels.
Sio matangi timwa alana kwa mama kwa ni Josephine Zilani Onyaka ni wa kikundi cha Kisawa ya ni vitwe nditetheka kwanza ya kupanda mboka ni mbanda manana ni mbanda sukuma na kwanza Yesu ila nabikiye kwirwa na kwata matangi mamnenga kibukianu na nabanda mboka ona musikwakwa nonete withitwe na kibathukanyo kondwa kwithiwa sindu ila tubandite ibikiyite kutunenga osiao na tukabikia kuthosia tukakwata mbesa bala wethiyo na ciana citu itaigisoma muthenani wa umunthi ciana citu ni somete umunthi ni nduthia amemba maikundi maikatule na maikanwe na maikakulie mbesa ciuma ba mundu evinilindie tukwatiwe ni Susani tukwatiwe na tongo ya langi maikundi nikenda tubikiye mabikiye kukwata matangi takwa umunthi mundu nikukana kuona kwakwa beki bathukania lakini nondu wa kithito kila twambisie nacho nikulia memba makwate na dina ikenda mone otanu langwiwa umunthi ni naguo onthio ninaitumisia ondesha utungia ngai mubia nikethiwa mabinda magitakuka umunthi utina thina omwe ula umelile ula tutawisi ona kuma mwambiyoni indi twiwa tuthambe moko nundu wa ula wiko wa kolona indi umunthi nienda kuikithia kana akaingi ni matethekete nundu mwo wake gutiinaguo umunthi twina matangi ala tukwikilia kigu tukathamba tondu kwiki tata kwindu kwiyiwe tuneiwe tuthambe kigu tuthambe saa cionthe obala wathi uthambe indi mundu lote na kigu niwe withinani indi ithie tateyungie kikundi chanu mama tangi ila ni far from poverty umunthi tuina thina wa matangi umunthi tuina thina wa kigu tekita kwigwa andu matiwa mamanthe kigu no kithio su ni thina wi muci indi umunthi andu ala twakwatanie aka tuina thina osu mundu wiya ciana ithambe kigu kaciekia bala jailite no kithia muci ucu wina uthigula wailite ula ukwendeka nundu wa kwiciana no wo muthuku wa kolona umunthi nendegwe ni kosa mwana na kuthuthia aka nikenda makwatane kila ngaliko nikenda mabikiye kwithiwa makitetheka ni kundi ila nonete sina otethio ende ti mundu mukata bwa kikundi takira cha matangi taki ni nondu wa kwasia kana akamakwatane maume thinani misila yina kiwu yina thina no wawula utwe meye ujie meya misila yina kiwu nundu kiwu kibo kwa wingi nye kuma nalika kikundine cha matangi nionete uniko munene nikethiwa nina matangi eli ala namu mona matangi hata mambisie titekindu endi umunthi na maungamite tha nithina waka ula wafikiye kwimbwa uyumba na pamwe utumba nyatula tupesa tutiti nokabikia kukwata matangi binosu waka umunthi nuwona tinge waya kwegwika ende ninge wayago matangi yage makwatelata meli
twatumia tutalatwa kauli twatene but now tutumia taasikuo taona si umliko na kunza so tushukuru muno.
Water is life. Water is health. Water is growth. Water is a blessing to everything it touches. Growing trees is important not just for the health of the world.
Wood is special to the Kamba people, and these small seedlings growing into strong trees alongside their beautiful daughters symbolizes the hope and bright future for these women in the Ukambani region.
Lovely.
I hope you've enjoyed watching the video. You've enjoyed this time with us, and we are ready to answer your questions today. Remember, you can write down there in the Q&A, or you can, raise your hand and we'll take up your question. Great. So I see Michelle has a question, and she is asking, do the tanks stay full? It doesn't look like Kenya gets much rain during much of the year. What do you see, Gwyneth?
The answer to that is they're sealed at the top. Once the rains have come, they get sealed at the top, so they don't evaporate. And the women also put covers over them to minimize the amount of any evaporation that might happen out through the tanks. And the women admit it takes several rainfalls for them to fill up, and the more tanks they have, the better, the more water that they can have between the rains. Because there are two rainy seasons in Kenya. One is a long rain and one is a short rain. One is for 2 months and the other one's for 3 months, and they can be a long distance apart. And Jillian has a question about how the catchment system works. And it's rainfall. As you saw, the houses have metal roofs and we have gutters. And the women add gutters, and the gutters empty into the water tanks, to fill them up. So it's rainwater. And yes, on the very first few days when it rains, they don't fill up their tanks from that water, because they let the rain just kind of wash off the roofs to start. And then they start filling up their tanks.
Right. And Jillian's question is like Donald, where he's asking about the rainfall, which months it occurs, and how the rain is collected. So it's, I think, from the water tanks. So you could see that there was like gutters connected to the main house. So the rainwater comes through the gutters into the tanks. And as Gwyneth has said, we have 2 seasons. I am from Kenya. So we have 2 seasons. We have short season and long rain. Short is March, April, and then the long is November, December. And so how much rainfall occurs depends on the season. There are times that, the rain is really short, even though it's supposed to be long rain. And then there are times there's a lot of rain, and then you get to catch more water. So it's always, like for the women with 2 water tanks, they're really happy, because that can really take you a long time. Oh, speaking of 2 water tanks, I see Baltic asking why some get 2 water tanks. So ideally, the women contribute. It's a group of women, they contribute, and then we match whatever they contribute and buy a water tank. So there are times that among themselves, after they finish, like they all go around and everyone has water tank and probably has the solar panels. They're like, what else do we need right now? They're like, why don't we get 2 water tanks? So you go around again, each family to have 2 water tanks, because, well, the more water tanks you have, the better, because you don't have to, go to the river. That's why.
And Laura also wants to know what sorts of vegetables and fruit do they grow, and do they have a local market that they sell their goods at? And the answer to that question is yes, they do have a market. It's also where they have to go to buy their food as well. But they do have markets where they can go to sell their food. The vegetables, fruits and vegetables that they sell, that they grow, if they have access to water, they can grow bananas. They can also grow mangoes. They also grow something called sukuma wiki, which is like spinach. Tastes almost exactly like spinach. And of course, they grow kale. And it's a lot of the same vegetables that we would find. They grow sweet potatoes and arrowroot, both of which are very starchy. Sometimes they grow regular potatoes. So it's a lot of the same vegetables that in some ways that we would see ourselves. You want to add to that?
Right. And Bonnie, we see you have your hand up. We're going to let you ask your question. So unmute yourself.
How many gallons does a tank hold of water? And where do the tanks come from? Where are they made?
The tanks made by a company in Kenya itself, just outside of Nairobi.
Okay.
And they are, what hasn't been mentioned is they now have an antimicrobial and antiviral lining that's sprayed onto the inside as well. They also have, when they start collecting the rainwater off their roofs, there's also kind of a filter to help, keep any bits of any bits of plant life and all that might be on the roof from going into the tank. How
large are they? How many?
They're 10,000 liters.
Okay.
They look like a small house.
Yeah.
Basically, I mean, they hold a lot of water, but the women have found from experience that they need 2, sometimes 3 of these tanks to get them between the rainy seasons.
I see. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. And Boswick, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. I see you're asking who decides who gets the water tanks. So the women themselves, so they decide among themselves. They have like a lot. They're like, okay, so who's going to go first? Who's going to go second? So they get to decide who gets whatever water tanks and at what point they get. So you are not likely to get 2 water tanks when there's still someone who does not have in your group. So you all go around and then now you decide, okay, let's get a second one. And how do we get? So they get to make that decision amongst themselves. Right. Quite. We love the questions coming. So Gwyneth, I know you've been to Kenya a number of times. Did you ever get to walk for water?
I haven't done that, unfortunately. It's more partly because I hurt my back, and trying to carry 40 to 45 pounds of water on it, plus would just somehow not really be something I would be up for any longer. But I have walked with the women along their routes, and the distances that they walk, even when I'm healthy, is like, it's amazing how far they go and what they have to do just to get water.
Right.
That we all take, that something we so take for granted. And so we've got some more questions.
Yeah.
How much do the tanks cost is from Jessica, and they cost about $1,500, $1,600, which given the exchange rate means they cost way more than that in Kenyan shillings. And since we have a good connection with the company that makes the tanks, that's the discounted price at that. And what trees do you plant? Hopefully not eucalyptus. No, we tend to plant like whatever trees we plant are native to Kenya. So they're like acacia trees, which are very hardy and sturdy. But yeah, it's trees that the women themselves often have like little nurseries and do the starts. And then, so they provide the sap, the little tree starts, and we plant whatever they've been starting. So yeah, no, they tend to plant like acacia and other trees that are native to Kenya.
Right.
Can
you see that?
Okay, is there ever excess water collection that's able to be shared, or is that a quote pipe dream? So that's when any one woman gets a tank, part of the deal is that she shares the water in her tank with her neighbors, as well as the other women who are part of her group if they live close enough. So it's a shared. So yeah, once they get their tanks, whoever gets the first first tanks have to share the water with their families as well as with the other women in the group.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, they understand that helping everybody not have to walk it's a collective work effort on everything.
Right. Right. Okay.
Well, all right, we need to be mindful of time, so thank you everybody so much for coming and attending, and we hope that this has been an informative session. It definitely was for me, and I've been there. If you could take some, if you have any more questions, you can put them in post them in Q&A, and we will get back to you. And if you want to have this presented at your church or book club or whatever, leave us your contact information, and we will pass that along to make sure that you will be able to do that.